Well, hello again. This is Lee Thurburn, welcoming you back to Live Stream Lee, where we meet every day, Monday through Friday at 3 o'clock to talk about business and how to improve yours, make it more profitable, more fun, and maybe even work a little less, make more money. Wouldn't that be great? I think we'd all like that. So today we're going to have an interesting topic on the subject of leadership, and I have invited a guy that I know knows a lot about it because he is not only teaches it, but he's lived it. Thom Meyers is an ex-Navy officer, nuclear sub guy. If you know anything about nuclear sub guys, you know that they have to be leaders because they're down in a pretty tight spot, and they have to know how to lead people. But beyond that, he teaches people how to be leaders in his consultancy. But before we get into and unpack that topic, I want to make sure that I cover a couple of points of business. First of all, the whole purpose of Live Stream Lee and my company, Apricot Rocket, is to help you grow your business. My technology, Apricot Rocket, is a software platform, a little bit similar to Facebook and LinkedIn. I think we kind of fit in that space between them. Our goal is really very simple: to help you get more customers. And we, I think, accomplish that quite regularly and predictably. And it's all about the way we do that is by helping you to build communities and nurture relationships. An account on Apricot Rocket is free. Please go to apricotrocket.com, create an account, tell us about your business, and let us see if we can't help you grow a little faster. That is, after all, what we want, and I'm guessing what you want as well. So that's what we're all about. And you can also go to livestreamlee.com and join our community for this broadcast, where various documents and slide decks and other things that we talk about are available in the community portal. When you join the Livestream Lee community, if you don't already have an Apricot Rocket account, you'll be creating one at that point in time, and accounts are free. So don't forget or fail to take advantage of this great offer. I also want to talk about my corporate swag. So you can see, I'm going to actually shut this off. Over here on my left corner, you can see my wonderful designer mannequin that has a copy of our blue long sleeve t-shirt. I'm not trying to sell that to you. I just want you to know where I got mine. I got mine from a guy named Bob Hurt. Bob has been in the corporate apparel business for about 50-something years, and he knows everything there is to know. And the most important thing I want you to know about Bob is the convenience and cost savings that he brings to the table. Bob cuts through the clutter. It can be a very confusing world, and he helps you make the smart, wise decision that's right for your business. And then he can get it decorated with any kind of decoration that you want, and it's going to be high quality at a great price. So go to livestreamlee.com, and on the right-hand side, you'll see a button that says Bob Hurt. Click there and get in touch with Bob. If you need corporate apparel, he's the guy to talk to. All right, we're going to go ahead and unpack our topic for today, and today's topic is leadership. And, you know, I've given some thought, done a little research. I think leadership may be the single most important thing that a company must have if it's going to succeed. You know, there's so many different ways of approaching the topic of what's important to your company to succeed. But certainly, if you look at the importance of the leader to the success of the company, probably no single thing is more important. You know, and so there's a lot of people out there that talk about building leadership skills and developing leadership traits and attributes and all those kinds of things. And so I thought, let's first think about, how is a leader important to a business? And so the things I came up with, it starts with vision. A leader must, more than anything else, have a clear vision of a potential future that achieves goals, typically wealth creation, but could be more subtle, more specific than that. But a leader has a vision for a potential future that he knows or she knows the company can strive to achieve and can achieve. to reach that goal, regardless of where you start, whether you're a startup company or whether you're a leader within an existing company, you also have to be a change agent or a change architect. You have to not only have a vision for where you want to be, but be able to sort of map how do you get from here to there. And so you have to be able to architect change and within the organization. And a big part of that is spreading your vision through inspirational communications, motivating people. I kind of think of that as being a cheerleader. Of course, the word leader is incumbent in cheerleader, but you get the idea is that you have to be able to constantly help people to visualize and stay motivated towards achieving that goal. And you have to be able to recruit people that are key to the success of the team in achieving that goal. So you have to be able to go out and find and identify and hire people that have a like mind or can collectively help you get to this vision of the future that you have. And in most cases, that also includes building a culture where the cultural reinforcements of the company leads the wrong word. The cultural sort of reinforcement encourage people to behave in a fashion that's consistent with achieving the goals that you envision the company achieving. You also have to be the ethical standard bearer. You have to decide what is the right and wrong, the moral position that you want the people within your company to be able to adhere to. You need to set the standard. You probably need to have a variety of codes and documents written down so that people know what they can and can't do, should and shouldn't do, what you expect them to do when they interact with vendors and customers. But you as the leader become the ethical standard bearer. If you talk a talk but don't walk the walk, the people in your company are going to see it. So you have to lead the path in your behavior. And then, of course, you have to be both strategic and inspirational in your thinking. You have to, and how you conduct yourself. Strategic in terms of being able to see how you navigate towards this potential future. I talked about the architect sort of aspect, but you also have to, again, be inspirational in terms of helping people see the vision and want to buy into this vision of the future. I got to say, that's a hefty load right there. All that stuff, that is not just hey, I woke up this morning, I decided I want to be a leader. And there's a certain sort of thought that people are just born leaders. When I think of leaders, of course, the people that come to my mind are the Eisenhowers and Churchills and Reagans of the past century, people that accomplished major things from a historical perspective. But leaders don't have to be historically significant figures. They can just be company significant figures, economically significant figures. And they don't even have to be, the kind of economically significant leader that somebody's going to write a book about or remember 1,000 years from now. They just need to be significant in the context of the time and the company in which they exist. So I wanted to sort of set the standard here. I may very well have missed some significant leadership skills or attributes or characteristics. And I know that I can trust Thom to let me know if I did. So I'm going to now ask Thom to go ahead and join us. And Thom, you do a lot of work with leadership. And the thing I want to talk about today generally is, how do you train a leader to be a better leader? How do you take a person that may not have a lot of richness in terms of leadership skills, and how do you take them to develop those skills? That's what I want to talk about. But before we go into that, did I hit most of the major points? Did I miss anything in terms of the leadership sort of paradigm that you think is important to talk about?
Well, of course, I'm sure you missed something, but you really inspired me to think about what's important about a leader. And it was interesting that I wrote down sort of your list of what does it take to be a leader. And, you and I both started with vision. And And having that vision is so critical. The other thing that I've seen that's really hard is, even though you have the vision, can you get alignment of the team around you to buy into that vision? And then the third part that's really hard is, can you then go off and get that team that you're with to go execute the vision? And the studies say 91% of teams can't execute.
Why do you think that is?
Because it's hard and people aren't trained on how to do that, and they don't necessarily have a well-defined process of this is what we're going to do, and you do it the same way every time, and they're not trained. So, I mean, there's all those elements of what's necessary to execute, but the thing that makes the difference is the good leaders somehow make it happen. And the not so good leaders can have a great team, and of course we see that in sports, but the execution doesn't happen. Now, by the way, I was privileged yesterday to see one of the great Dallas Cowboys talk to us about some of these leadership things. It was Charles Haley. Now, Charles Haley is one of two people in the world who have 5 Super Bowl rings. And when he came to Dallas, 3 years out of 4, we won the Super Bowl. and he commented, he said, 90% of NFL football players are not leaders. They're followers. And he said, in all humility, I could go into a locker room with these people and 20 minutes tell them what we're going to do and why, and get them to go out there and do it. And obviously he was very good at it. So it was really made me thinking about what you're talking about. So, by the way, the easy way you make a leader is you take and you put them in the military.
Well, they have a time-proven method of making you a leader, don't they? It's
they do.
20 years.
But look, it's about training. It's about having good examples, So there's fundamentals there that the military, not everybody's a good leader, but there's some essentials there. So when I was thinking about this concept of leadership, and you covered a lot of stuff, great. I was thinking about what are 2 good words about the differences between what the great leaders do and the not so great leaders do. And you talk about Churchill and some of those. The 2 words I came up with, they inspire and they motivate people to do the right thing, or at least what they're trying to get them to do. So it may not even be the right thing, but they motivate them to do things. I mean, believe it or not, Hitler was a great leader in some ways, not one we want to emulate.
No.
So anyway, you really got me thinking about this thing. And then I was thinking about, okay, if you're a leader, what are your challenges? And what I have found in working with many great leaders is they would admit to this. Communications. I've got to be a good communicator, and I've got to be an effective communicator. I also have to hold people accountable, and a lot of people don't like to hold others accountable. If you don't hold others accountable and you're the leader, I guarantee you're not going to get execution. And many of us are not ever trained to hold other people accountable. And many of us don't like to hold other people accountable, just like many parents don't like to do that.
Right.
So the other hard part is, how do you know what my leadership skills are or what my leadership weaknesses are? And if you don't know, you can't get any better. And it's a really, really, really hard part. And so when we talk about, okay, now how can you get better? Those were just some of the preliminary thoughts I have. And then I've got a bunch of tips, but anything you want to say so far, because I've done a lot of talking.
Well, I use the mantra that management is measurement. And you can't manage something that you don't measure, which means you can't improve it because you don't know whether it improved or not.
That's right.
And so when you're talking about managing your own leadership skills, or if you have a team of people and you want to manage in terms of train them to become better leaders, you have to have some way of being able to measure the different attributes or aspects of leadership that are important in your situation. And they may be a little different from one situation to the next, but I think generally they're the same. So measuring leadership and then measuring progress is one of those things that, quite honestly, I wouldn't know how to begin doing. Talk a little bit about how you go approach that.
Well, look, and that was certainly in my list. Okay. So there are a number of assessment tools that you can measure your and your team's leadership abilities. So as a coach, I've got a number of tools. There are counselors who do that. There are any number of people who provide those leadership assessment tools. There's techniques like what they call a 360, where with a team, you go around and give feedback to each other. There's a book called Strength Finders. And I think it's important to know what your strengths and weaknesses are. I think that everybody ought to do a DISC profile assessment of what is your personality profile. And then it will tell you, based on your personality, what are some of the risks of your personality style and what are some of the things you could do better. I've got them written up right behind me on my wall. What are the things I could do better? What are the things I need to be aware of? So I think that awareness is so critical. And I think that's a hard part, is to get that. And that was like one of the first things I had on my list, Lee. And part of it then is feedback. So I think you got to know what you don't know. But then you also have to be able to get feedback from other people. Part of that is being open to feedback among your team. But part of it's a mindset that says I have to be open to feedback of when I haven't been successful or how I could be better. I mean, I learned immeasurably when I was part of Fortune 500 companies with really high talented HR people who might sit in a meeting with me and say, hey, Thom, I heard you say such and such, and I liked part of what you did, but the way you said it didn't come across very well.
Okay.
So that idea of getting feedback and coaching about how you're doing is so critical. So I'm sure you're aware of that.
So when you take an engagement with a client, and I'm guessing, and correct me if I'm wrong, the majority of your engagements include a leadership sort of assessment and training, upgrading sort of component, right? I would just expect that to be the case. So naturally, based upon what you've already said, it sounds like when you take on an engagement, one of the first things that you do, at least relative to the leadership part of it, is you run a series of assessment tests so that you have some baseline metrics that you can then look at. Okay, so once you've done that and you've kind of determined where the strengths of each individual and the weaknesses of each individual are, so that you can come up with with a plan. Talk about how you what does the leadership strengthening and skills enhancement process look like? Describe. I mean, is it a series of webinars or workshops or one-on-one coaching, or I mean, just what does that process look like, and what kind of improvement? If you have a baseline on a scale of 5 to 10 of a 5, can you get somebody from a 5 to a 10, or can you only jump them from a 5 to a 6 or a 7? I mean, what are the kind of reasonable expectations in terms of how you approach it and what you can expect in the way of results?
Wow. First thing about that is that's a conversation with the CEO in terms of where does he want to focus regarding leadership. Okay. And does he want to focus on individuals? Does he want to focus just on himself?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times my focus on leadership is done two ways when I work with a client. It's one-on-one coaching for the CEO.
Okay.
And secondly is teaching leadership fundamentals to the entire leadership team about things that they can do better. And, it's hard to answer some of those broad questions you ask, but I will tell you, if I start with a really great leader, let's say like a Jimmy Dale of Baker Brothers Plumbing,
Okay.
that's pretty easy of just doing some fine tuning and some asking some questions and making suggestions. On the other hand, then we looked at his whole team and said, okay, which members do we really need to do some strengthening and some coaching on, and how are we going to do that? And then we laid out a program as to what are we going to do and how are we going to do that. And, I will tell you that over like 3 years, we got rid of some players. We turned some players into B-level leaders to A-level leaders. And we taught the whole team some skills that most of them as plumbers had never experienced in their lifetime. So it's a broad spectrum there in terms of what kind of results do you have. But the first thing is that assessment of what are you starting with, whether it's how do I look at where I'm starting with myself, starting with a team. You gotta know that. And then the tools are immeasurable, because I get amazing tools from Vern Harnish and the Scaling Up people. It's the reason I pay them for that. I've got a broad list of books that I think people ought to read, but maybe 10% of people are readers, and many are not. So, there's
Right.
I got a wonderful list of books, as I'm sure you do. I think having exercises as a team do amazing things. So, for instance, I'm going to be doing an exercise with a team based on a book called Crave by Greg Letterman, who's now teaching people how to give recognition on a regular basis throughout the company. And he has shown amazing results in improving motivation and employee engagement just by making it a habit that everybody gives recognition to their coworkers, the people who work for them, their customers. This whole idea of recognition, most of us have never been trained on that. But he's had amazing results. So in terms of my working with a leadership team, it's having to partner and have regular conversations with that CEO as to what kind of leadership skills do you want to work on. And look, here's the problem. it requires new habits, and you can only tackle a few at a time. So the challenge is, how do I pick the right leadership skills that we want to work on that are going to have high payoff?
Right.
Okay. And I do want to just sort of generalize that discussion of, if anybody who's wanting to improve their leadership skills, I think what's really important is that they find a coach, a mentor, an accountability partner to help them stay on track, just like you were talking about measuring.
Yeah.
When you start, then you've got to have somebody to help you see, are you doing it? Not only just are you doing it, but are you doing it well? Are you sticking to the habit? And so that's one of the things that stands out, is this idea of having a coach, a mentor, an accountability partner.
So somebody that's never engaged in a leadership, coaching, mentoring, accountability partner process, what are some tips that you could give? We have 2 or 3 minutes left. What are some tips that you could give to this new person searching to improve their leadership skills? How do they seek out and determine who's the right person? What are the questions that they ask? How do they know they found the right person to help them?
Well, I think one of the things is, start looking, start asking. Okay. Second thing is this a person that I feel I can trust? Third thing is, has this person demonstrated in their past a track record of leadership, or are they just sort of teaching me out of a book? Okay. I don't think it's that hard once you make a serious search and asking people like Lee, asking people like Thom. You can Google coach in Dallas, you're going to find 2,000 people. Now that's pretty challenging there. So, but I think a lot of it has to do with referrals, of finding people who have successfully worked with people who are really good at leadership. Some degree it goes back to branding. Who's got a branding history of having successfully coached people? It's just like I'm with 250 coaches around the world, and Vern Harnish has been doing this since before the year 2000. So we have a brand recognition that people pretty much know. Right. If I go with that brand, likely they're going to be able to help me. So the main thing is you start looking. And the other thing is you find people that you see and know who've been successful at being good leaders, and you ask the good leaders. So don't ask people who aren't good leaders. Ask examples of good leaders as to, how did you get there? And associate yourself with good leaders and spend your time with good leaders, and disassociate yourself from people who are not. I mean, those are a couple of real things.
Thom, we're just about out of time, but you've got if I'm not mistaken, you've got an event coming up in the near future, or has it already happened, where you go through a one-day sort of discussion of a lot of this stuff and other things?
Yeah.
So I went to one of them one time. What is it?
So it's called a Scaling Up Workshop. I typically do those once a year. It will be June 17th at Prestonwood Country Club, where Bill Wallace holds Success North Dallas. In fact, Bill referred me to Success North Dallas, or to Prestonwood, because my club Bentry is shut down right now. It'll be an all day on June 17th. But for those people who can't attend all day. It'll be a half-day virtual on June 16th. And so we'll be discussing a lot of these elements.
So, folks, in the little scroll bar, the ticker tape down at the bottom, you can see Tom's information. There's his phone number. And of course, if you're not already connected to him on LinkedIn, just send him a message and I'm sure he'll be delighted to provide you with more information. I've known Tom for, I don't know, 10 years or more. And, talk about consistency and success. One of the reasons I asked Tom to join me is because I know that, he does have a lot of experience, both successful in his life as well as working successfully with organizations, large and otherwise. So, Tom, thank you for making time to come on today. I always enjoy visiting with you and appreciate your thoughts on leadership today. It's good stuff.
Well, I'm glad to do it, and just to add on as I can.
I'm gonna
take
I'll be
weekly newsletter.
Yeah. So go to connect up to Tom, and he'll put you on his newsletter list. It's a good read. It's good stuff, and just one of those resources that you can look forward to. Tom, thank you again for your time today. I'll talk to you soon. I'm going to put you back in the waiting. Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye. All right, folks. So Thom Meyer, again, is just a real wealth of resources and knowledge on that topic, and I always appreciate talking with him. Before I get away today, I want to talk about somebody else that's a wealth of knowledge. His name is Bob Hampton. He's both a CPA and a certified financial planner. He's a financial advisor. He focuses his attention on helping businesses plan for their exit strategy and their exit time. If you're successful and you build a big business, at some point you're going to want to sell it. And the time to start planning for that sale event is not when you're on the phone with the buyer. It's like, yeah, I'd like to sell. Oh, by the way, Bob, I'm about to sell my business. You want to start that conversation with a guy like Bob a couple of years in advance or longer. So I'm going to recommend that you go to livestreamlee.com and click on the Bob Hampton link. Go to Bob's website from there and get in touch with Bob. And he focuses his attention on financial planning for businesses with a real emphasis on the exit strategy related to optimizing your wealth and minimizing your taxes and all that kind of stuff, which is important. So Bob Hampton, good guy to know. All right. Thank you for your time today. We went a few minutes over, but it was good stuff. And I'll be back tomorrow with a conversation with Mike Sedtal, who has built a thriving IT services business here in the Dallas area. And then on Monday, I'm going to be talking with a guy named Mike Armour. Mike is a PhD, and what's really exciting is he's a former Navy officer, kind of like Tom. Mike worked in the intelligence area, and he and I recently had a conversation about China that we're going to carry online. And I think you're going to want to tune in because there's just some interesting stuff going on. And if you haven't thought about the implications to your business of what is happening in, say, the South China Sea and other sort of Chinese sphere stuff, then you're going to want to tune into this conversation on Monday, same time. So until then, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you soon. Bye.